Hey everybody, Elizabeth Nader back with you. The Nader Narrative on Jersey First TV. Voter rolls, election integrity. Everybody has been hearing a lot of these buzzwords in New Jersey for a few years now. What are we doing in New Jersey? Do we have clean voter rolls? Is anyone looking into this? There's a lot that we can tell you today that you will learn about that's happening with the efforts of other organizations to make sure our voter rolls are clean. And why should we care? We should care on all sides of the aisle, right? This should be a bipartisan issue, that we have elections that are fair. That we have elections that we have actually voters who should be registered, that we aren't seeing duplicates. And we all hear the stories of duplicate ballots now with mail-in ballots. We all hear the stories of people that are getting things at home that don't belong there. We've heard so many stories. Let's get to some of the truth and let's find out what's going on to make sure that our elections are clean. There is an organization, luckily, who is doing this across the nation and actually now in New Jersey, the Public Interest Legal Foundation. And today I have the honor of talking to Jay Christian Adams, the president of that organization. We are so pleased to have you here. Your organization, Public Interest Legal Foundation, you are the only public interest law firm dedicated wholly to election integrity. That's pretty impressive, Christian. I mean, I got to give you a lot of kudos for that.
Well, thanks. We have a bunch of voting section, Department of Justice voting section lawyer alums, and some attorney general alums from around the country. That's all we do is election law. We're a 501c3 charity dedicated to making the system work better.
Well, it's important, and a note to that, people can obviously support you then if you're a 501c3, so to continue your good work. Election integrity obviously has become hotter and hotter and hotter over the past few years, especially since 2020, as we all know. You've been looking at the individual states, and a lot of focus has been different areas, but voter roll cleanups. Can you first explain to people what the states are held to from the standpoint of federal law or statute, whatever it is, that they must do in relation to their voter rolls?
Right. I'm sure a lot of people remember Motor Voter in 1993. It was a big push by President Clinton to make it easier to vote, but it had a lot of provisions in it that answer your question. Before 1993, it was a free-for-all. Counties across the country would basically have their own voter roll, and it was really easy and common for people to be registered in multiple counties. So after 1993, with the federal law and the subsequent law in 2002 called the Help America Vote Act, another federal law passed after Palm Beach County in the Florida mess of 2000,
right,
there became a requirement to have a single centralized statewide voter roll database. That way you can see if somebody is registered multiple times. That way one person would be in charge of the system, not 50, because if 50 are in charge, no one's in charge.
Right.
And so these federal laws consolidated voter rolls into one single place in Trenton, in Harrisburg, in Albany, and so forth. Where you could basically keep the rolls clean because you have only one place to clean.
And so that falls under the oversight in New Jersey of the Secretary of State. I believe in every state, it's the Secretary of State who is supposed to oversee that. Now, there is the NVRA specifically about requirements about voter roll cleanup. Can you talk about that, the NVRA?
Sure. National Voter Registration Act of 1993 requires states to make a reasonable effort to keep voter rolls clean of duplicates, the dead, people who've moved away. And they do this through a variety of means. They, presumably are doing all they can. Of course, we know that's not always true. But in New Jersey, we found astonishing numbers of failures, of thousands upon thousands of duplicates. It almost looked like the old system where the counties were basically keeping the voter rolls and the states weren't doing anything centralized. It wasn't quite that bad, but it almost was that bad. And the problem is it still persists. We have a lawsuit against New Jersey to try to figure out what went haywire and to get things cleaned up. But unfortunately, the rules involving keeping the rolls clean are federal, and not all states follow them.
Right. Okay. So I want to talk about that lawsuit in a moment. You guys filed that in May. You've actually moved that along. We're going to get back to that. But let's talk about some of
Sure.
these functions. I think you bring up such an important point about the counties. I know from personal experience, having engaged in local voter roll cleanup, meaning some people in precincts going door to door and asking questions and trying to help get people off the rolls who have moved. We noticed one of the problems in New Jersey is that when you register for your license at the DMV, you're automatically registered to vote, or can be. That might be a different name than the name that you then maybe decide to register to vote with, meaning you might use a middle initial, you might spell something differently. How much of that, Christian, creates a problem for us?
That's actually a huge problem, Elizabeth. If you were to go and register at DMV when you get your driver's license, which is part of motor voter, under, let's just say, Elizabeth Nader, well, then you're like the county fair, and someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, would you like to update your voter registration information or whatever?" They give you a clipboard to sign up to register. And if you were to register as Elizabeth S. Nader, you would actually get it registered twice. And if you registered, and if there's a typo from the form you filled out, when they start keying it in and they type ELISABETH,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That would be a third registration. And these are not hypotheticals. We have seen this across the country where people are getting registered multiple times because of slight variations in the information.
And that could be human error. It's not always intentional. It's just a series of different inputs that could be wrong. Now this gets exasperated when you move into the world of mail-in voting, and as we saw, we didn't have that in New Jersey until COVID. We only had absentee ballots, which you had to request. You had to have a reason for requesting that. You were out of the country, or what have you. So with the universal mail-in ballots, now all of a sudden, if that's happened to me, and maybe there's another registration where my last name is wrong or just spelled with a different letter, I may be getting 3 or 4 ballots at home. This is where we see mail-in balloting really not only brought this up to the forefront, right? But isn't this kind of the Trojan horse that could be abused?
Yeah, automatic mail-in balloting plus problematic voter rolls equals disaster. That's why an election was overturned in Paterson, New Jersey,
That's right.
because of all the ballots being mailed out and grabbed out of mailboxes in bulk. And mail balloting with bad voter rolls is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
It's the worst way to run an election. I mean, not only are you giving power to the post office, but you're highlighting and teasing out every error on the voter rolls possible by sending ballots to those addresses.
And again, everyone should be concerned about this, right? This shouldn't be a partisan issue. We want to have fair elections. We should all be concerned that people aren't getting multiple ballots. And the fact that we can't clean this up, is concerning. Let's talk about the lawsuit. So in May, you sued our Secretary of State, Tahisha Wei, for the very reason that you felt that there were issues with the voter roll. Let's get into that lawsuit and some of the specifics.
Yeah, and to your point about everyone should be concerned about this. Look, if I'm running for I'm a Democrat running for state Senate, or I'm a Democrat running for state House, I don't want to be mailing campaign materials and spending my money to all these bad addresses. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody suffers. The government suffers by mailing out stuff, sending materials to these bad addresses. We all pay the price. It's not a partisan issue.
Yeah.
Now, the lawsuit was based on something sort of amazing. After we discovered all of these duplicates on New Jersey voter rolls, right, for the reasons we talked about, we asked the Secretary of State to send us their procedures. Like, what do you do to address duplicates? How do you prevent them from happening? How do you get them off the rolls when they do happen? And they just said, you're not getting it. And you're not getting anything else about these duplicates. It was a stonewall. It was lack of transparency, stonewall. And so we filed under the National Voter Registration Act. It has a public records provision that all list maintenance documents, all documents that relate to the voter rolls being cleaned, have to be public. And it seems as if the New Jersey officials weren't real aware of that issue.
Well, I hate to say it doesn't surprise me, but having engaged in some attempts to clean up at a county level, I didn't see a system. And we ask that question often, and we have a great county clerk in my county. What are you doing with this information? We've discovered a few people who have passed. People definitely, even the day of at some polling locations, we encountered a lot of people coming in to vote who had moved to a different county. Their name was still with our county. And so all the answers were sort of nebulous. And also, well, that will get figured out, do provisional, we'll figure it out at the end. Doesn't feel very good, Christian, when you're hoping that the process actually works. Feels like it's kind of broken down.
Right. And New Jersey has not gotten a lot of scrutiny before our lawsuit. They sort of were like left on their own on these issues. And it's I think what you're seeing is the end product of that, of just people are doing things like they've always done it, which is not always very well. And they can't really give you an answer right now. So get back to us later on all these issues. That's sort of the attitude we encountered too.
Well, we appreciate that you're shining light on it, because I think you're right that nobody's really held anyone's feet to the fire. What part of this do you think has to do with just really poor systems? We know that in New Jersey, we haven't really done a lot of investment in infrastructure, and I'm talking about servers and new technology, and servers that talk to each other. It's amazing when someone dies, a funeral home immediately lets Social Security know. There is this sort of ability to let the right agencies know, but that isn't happening as it relates to voter rolls. And so how much of this do you think is also technology, or the lack of technology?
Well, I was shocked when I learned that the New Jersey statewide database is not really doing what other statewide databases around the country do. The counties still have outsized functionality in New Jersey, and there isn't really a seamless sort of interface between the two, like you see in other states. And I've seen the systems in other states up close, and New Jersey seems to kind of be lagging behind, whether that's software, whether that's willpower. We don't know yet. We'll eventually figure that out in our lawsuit.
Yeah.
But it's a strange circumstance.
I think it's a combination of all of those things, the current administration, lack of interest in all of this. So you advanced this lawsuit, and I believe you had a ruling, was it in November, that was in your favor, correct?
Right. I mean, the most states don't like these lawsuits, but and they fight back at the beginning, and they almost always lose. I mean, I can't think of a state that's won when we bring one of these voter roll lawsuits in a very, very long time. I'd have to rack my brain to think who that is. You have an obligation to be transparent. That's the bottom line. When it comes to our elections, because of federal law, election officials have to be transparent for list maintenance records. You have to do it. You have to give up the voter rolls. You have to show your procedures. You have to show the public what you're doing to keep the rolls clean and comply with federal law.
Well, it's not an option, even though they treat it like it is. And the response to you actually winning in court in November has been what?
Well, we don't have a settlement yet, which is, that's what we need, or we need the records we've asked for. That is the only acceptable outcome, is an unconditional compliance with federal law.
Christian, some people might have the reaction when you look at numbers, when somebody will do an audit, let's say, and they say, well, we found 10 dead people. And you say, well, what's the big deal? Or we found 8,000 duplicates where the names are misspelled. Okay, well, you're not quite getting to the numbers that could swing an election, but are you? I mean, really, isn't this about finding where the virus is, right? Where the work's not being done? Because doesn't this multiply? And shouldn't we care, even with those smaller numbers, that this isn't being cleaned up?
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, we all should care about government following the law and doing the best they can. But secondly, the fate of a nation was decided by, I think, 547 votes in 2000. And more to the point, number three, the Public Interest Legal Foundation has a database that we've compiled of elections around the country that have ended in a tie. And we're up to over 500 elections in just the last couple of years that ended in a tie.
Wow.
So I don't think it carries much weight with me when somebody says, oh, you aren't finding thousands of problems. It does. No, there's a lot of elections that end in a tie. And
It's
the presidency was decided by a small number of votes.
Thank you for reminding everyone of that. And it is such a valid point. I know we had an election in our town that was decided by one vote. I think it's important for people to remember it can be that close. It has been that close historically in big elections and small elections. So it matters. And it matters to find that we're not doing the right thing, because this will only compound if you leave it alone. So I want you to talk about some of your wins around New Jersey, because you've had some wins in Pennsylvania and Delaware. Tell us about those.
Well, in Pennsylvania, a similar thing was happening where there was a huge, colossal screw up by state officials, predominantly PennDOT, which is the state transportation agency, but also the Secretary of the Commonwealth, where they were actually allowing non-citizens to register to vote. And non-citizens can get driver's licenses. Don't forget, if someone has a green card or a student visa, they can get a driver's license. And when they were going to register to get a driver's license, they were being offered voter registration for the previous 20 years. 20 years of screw-ups asking non-citizens to register to vote in Pennsylvania. We discovered the problem, and we found out that it was gigantic. One estimate was 100,000 non-citizens. The low-end estimates were 10,000, okay? So the problem's big. We just want to know how big. We just wanted to see the records. We just wanted to know who was responsible. We just wanted to know what was done to fix it. We just wanted to know, what did you do to remove the non-citizens that got registered? Show us those records. Pennsylvania denied everything and said, you're not getting anything. So it's classic government cover-up of their mistakes.
Right.
And so we had to sue, and we won there. Real quick, Delaware had as a constitutional provision that says no mail voting except if you're sick or on travel or something, and you have to have voting in the precinct. The Constitution says that. So we sued on behalf of an election official who wanted to follow the law, and the Delaware Supreme Court ruled in our favor.
Nice.
So we're winning cases. We're winning.
I love that. And that right there is why foundations like yours need to exist, because people are often ignorant of the fact that their own constitution forbids officials from doing what they're trying to do. And it's often, something that they don't even know. So congratulations on those wins. Congratulations on others that you've had. I want to just thank you for coming on and educating us. I know you're going to be in New Jersey at the end of April at one of our conferences called A Seat at the Table, April 27th. So we're definitely looking forward to hearing more from you. You are one of the heroes fighting for all of us in this. So Christian, we appreciate you. Tell people how they can support your foundation.
Publicinterestlegal.org. There's a website. All of our cases, we have 11 active cases now, so it's not just the couple we talked about here. It's publicinterestlegal.org.
Excellent. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for fighting for all of us here. And to my audience, check out their website, and just know that people are fighting for this to be fair, even in all places of New Jersey. So we appreciate it, Christian. We'll have you back.
Okay, thanks for having me.